our goal was to go to a zero income tax, which is very beneficial. It allows the individual to make the decision on how much tax they pay because they have money in their pockets, and that's the key. There is more dollars in everybody's paycheck when the plan goes into place. Unfortunately, the lobbyists stand in the way of the people having less taxes.
What we're actually doing with this bill is finding a stopping point, or actually taking a step back or 2 steps back. We should be passing a tax bill that is comprehensive and achieves the goals of economic growth, jobs, and prosperity. We as elected officials need to do what is right because the people are counting on us to listen to them rather than to special interest. For too long, special interests have run the system, and by making the right and tough decisions mean maybe not coming back and getting reelected. But if re-election is the only issue and not doing what's right, then maybe none of us should be here. So that being said, Mr. Chairman, the members of the committee, I will tell you this bill is not fair and a right pathway and should not be supported. And under those circumstances, it hurts me to say to you, but I cannot support this bill. I will not vote for this bill because of the fact it doesn't achieve the goals of economic growth and job success. And in that sense, I would hope that we would find an alternative way rather than moving forward on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rucho.
There are a lot of groups that get special tax preferences, corporate loopholes, individual loopholes, the mortgage loophole, all of these. But what that really means is that certain groups get special tax treatment at the expense of everybody else. And that's why we have the highest personal income tax, 7.75% in the Southeast. We have the highest corporate tax rate of 6.9% in the Southeast. Our franchise tax is high. It puts us in a bad economic or competitive advantage for recruiting businesses, and not only for that, but for keeping them here. And so what we're trying to do is make the changes with real tax reform. Real tax reform doesn't mean just cutting rates. What it really means is changing the way you do business. Our tax policy only taxes 1/3 of the entire economy because it's shifted in that direction. So if you're just taxing goods, 2/3 of the rest of the economy is totally tax-free and has no burden on it. But what that really means is you're running on 2 cylinders in a 6-cylinder car on what is today's global economy, a superhighway. It doesn't let us achieve any of the good things that we believe are important, like increasing income and creating good jobs. We want to be able to have the entire economy, all of the GDP, effectively utilized by what is a consumption tax. Secondly, we wanted to get rid of all of the loopholes. Everybody should be treated in a fair manner. Everybody should be treated in the simple manner. As you might expect, there are a lot of people that have had a lot of tax special preferences that say, I've gotten it for all these years, I deserve it. I don't care if everybody else has to pay higher taxes. I want the benefits. That has to change. We have spent in the state of North Carolina since 2003, $6.7 billion in loopholes expenditures. But what we got in return for that is a net 61,000 jobs. That is a disaster. That means we moved in the wrong direction when we got into the incentives rates and the credit rates. But if you talk about benefits, for example, if you own a home and you said, I chose to have a home and I've got a mortgage deduction and I live in an apartment, well, you take advantage of the mortgage deduction and I end up subsidizing that for you because I don't have it. So in essence, you've got to treat everybody the same. Now, you look at people in the real estate industry, say, well, that mortgage deduction is important for growth of the industry. And I'll say to you, if you look at Texas, Florida, Tennessee, their model has been very successful, which is something we would like to emulate. But more importantly, they don't have any problems with housing slumps, even without that mortgage deduction. And all we're saying is you don't need it to be successful.
I know that at one of the hearings you looked around and asked who was a lobbyist here.
Yes, I did. Okay, I mean, it's a great question because it was designed to make a point, and that is that the businesses, the groups have all hired lobbyists to defend the special tax preferences that they got. Whether they be realtors, whether they be hospitals. Hospitals pay absolutely no taxes except for the North Carolina withholding. They pay no property tax, no franchise tax, no income tax to the state, nothing. And yet they say, well, we still want to have a special tax preference on sales tax. Well, if you're in a sales tax consumption economy, everybody has to pay their share. The point I was making is the audience that stood up and raised their hand were all lobbyists representing some special group who is trying to defend their special tax preference. And what that means is the ones that don't have lobbyists, the individual taxpayers, are paying higher taxes because of those special preferences. And we need to find a way to reverse it.
I know there's disagreement in your party among people serving in the House and within the Senate as well. Can you just help us understand what the differences are?
Well, we offered a plan that was comprehensive. In essence, it was a simple, fair, broadening the base, lowering the rates on all the taxes so that we could make North Carolina competitive. Unfortunately, the House decided that they were probably more sensitive to the pressures of the special interest, and also the fact that the governor had an opportunity to come forward and provide the leadership that would have done this. Had Governor McCrory stepped forward with a vision and the boldness like a Rick Perry or like the governor from Louisiana, Governor Jindal, we would have gotten reform done. Because it takes a combination of the House, the Senate, and the governor to accomplish a mighty task. So they reverted to another plan that nibbled around the edges and would not actually solve the the real problem on job creation that we would have wanted to solve.
But House Speaker Tillis, he is making also an economic argument that we can't do these things so dramatically, that it's too soon, too fast.
I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because it was dialed to the point where in 2014, without making any significant changes, every single person would have gotten 29% benefit in their paycheck because of less taxes. And then in 2015, that's a year and a half from now, the consumption-based tax would have gone into place. And the value of the plan that we proposed gave you the ability to dial up and down based on what kind of economic growth there was. There was nothing that would have prevented you from holding and staying there for a moment and then waiting another year if it had to be, but it was based on the economic growth that would have come out of the state. So to say that it was too rapid, I don't believe is accurate. I think what the reality is, they didn't understand the plan well enough to be able to see, or they succumbed to the same special interests that controlled the day, unfortunately. And that was unfortunate for the people of the state because they won't benefit from the economic growth, the jobs that would have come of it.
And did you actually resign as
the Senate Finance Chair? I resigned because I had a difference in the direction that the Senate leadership was trying to move. I was part of that. It would have been inappropriate for me to go against the Senate leadership as one of them. So I had no alternative but to step aside. I had a philosophical difference in how to solve the problem. The recommendations I made, they agreed with. What they said is it can't be politically done because the governor and the House chose not to battle the special interest as much as the Senate was willing to do. But unfortunately, it has to pass the House.
Right.
It also has to have the governor's signature. And if they're not willing to step on the toes of the special interest on behalf of the working families and the small businesses of the state, then that's where you find yourself. Will we go to a consumption-based tax for this year? I don't see that happening.
Right.
But you want to at least take the baby step forward in the direction there, and then hopefully the next legislature will be able to move it forward even better.